Now, we briefly mentioned the term insurrection, which has been used by the media to perpetuate feelings. So, what exactly is an insurrection, and what can the U.S. do if such an occurrence happens? Jai has all those details for you.
Thanks, Tiff. So, technically, an insurrection is defined by good old Merriam-Webster as an active instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government. So, if this should happen, the U.S. actually has legislation passed called, fittingly, the Insurrection Act. Now, we checked out the info from Brennan Center for Justice to bring you all the deets. First, this is a law that allows the president to deploy the military domestically and use it for civilian law enforcement. Now keep in mind, this law has not been updated in over 150 years. Is that a good or bad thing? Well, under normal circumstances, the U.S. military is not permitted to take part in civilian law enforcement. Why? Because of the posse comitatus rule. Now that was established due to traditionally viewing military interference in civilian government as being inherently dangerous to liberty. So this act should only be used in a crisis that is truly beyond the capacity of civilian authorities to manage. And it has been added to the United States Code, sections 251 through 255. And what exactly do these sections do? Glad you asked. First, Section 251 allows the president to deploy troops if a state's legislature, or governor if the legislature is unavailable, requests federal aid to suppress an insurrection in that state. That requires state consent. Then there is Section 252, which permits deployment in order to enforce the laws of the United States or to suppress rebellion, where such rebellion makes it impractical to enforce federal law. Next is Section 253. Now this is a two-part matter. The first part permits the president to use the military in a state to suppress any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy that so hinders the execution of the laws, or that any portion of the state's inhabitants are deprived of a constitutional right and state authorities are unable or unwilling to protect that right. Now both sections 252 and 253 allow the president to deploy troops without a request from the affected state, even if the state's wishes. Does that seem reasonable to you? It sounded reasonable when past presidents like Eisenhower and Kennedy relied on the provision to deploy troops to desegregate the schools in the South. Now, the second part to Section 253 allows the president to deploy troops to combat any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy, opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States, or impedes the course of justice under those laws. Now, some alarming contentions are who gets to decide when such deployments are necessary? Well, it is the president, according to the Supreme Court. However, the Supreme Court also clarified that courts may still review the lawfulness of the military's actions once deployed. The military cannot violate any laws or constitutional rights, so checks and balances are in effect here. Now here's a little background info on when the Insurrection Act has been used in the past so you can understand how it is used. Now first, Presidents George Washington and John Adams used it in response to early rebellions against federal authority. We then had President Abraham Lincoln, who invoked it at the start of the Civil War. President Ulysses Grant used it to crush the first incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1870s. And as we talked about a little earlier, both Eisenhower and Kennedy used it to enforce desegregation. Now, probably most notably in modern times, back in 1992, California requested military aid after the acquittal of the police officers in the death of Rodney King, which was a nationwide story. Now, everyone's trying to figure out what happened in the US on January 6th, 2021. Was it an insurrection? Was it a rally that got out of hand? When do we know if an action calls for the president to enact the Insurrection Act? Well, just as we said, the president has the official call. Now, is that worrisome due to the fact that any party may feel a certain way and try to prove their point by using power? We hope not. After all, we are in America, home of the free. That's what's up, freedom. Back to you, Tiff.
Thank you, Jai. We here on The Update and HYFNTV feel it is so important for you to be able to make your own decisions. Don't go along with the crowd because they are doing it. Be your own person. It's a beautiful thing when you are truly free. Stay tuned. Next up, we've got the amazing This Day in History and all the Arizona news you've been waiting for.